My name is Norm Volsky, your host, and this is the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast.
Thanks, Norm. It's an honor to be here, and it's been fun to work with you over the years.
Hello, welcome back to the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast with your host, Norm Volsky. And today we are thrilled to be joined by two special guests. We are joined by Kili Preitauer, CEO of Override Health, and Dr. Christina Le-Short, VP of Clinical Delivery, Medical Director of Override. For those who may not know, Override Health is a virtual chronic pain management program that provides patients with personalized non-opioid solution. Kili previously was head of growth at Tuesday Health, regional president at Value Health, partner at Kaiku Advisors, and chief growth officer at I2I Population Health. Kili also advised Valtris and is experienced in the payer and health plan space. Christina is a double board certified anesthesiologist and pain medicine physician. She spent 7 years at MD Anderson Cancer Center in their fellowship program director, also was assistant professor and chair of the graduate medical education committee. Earlier was chief resident in anesthesiology at the University of Miami / Jackson Memorial Hospital. So we're very excited to have two experts in pain management on the podcast and to talk all things Override. So welcome to the pod.
Thanks. We're excited to be here.
All right. Well, we're excited to have you. So Kili, what inspired you to get into healthcare?
Well, I stumbled into it in college, actually. I think I've heard this story from a lot of folks that they were never really set out to get into healthcare, but I took a job. I was in Hawaii and took a job with Hawaii's Medicaid program, and we were working with home and community-based providers. So this is a Medicaid waiver, long-term services and supports. Like, you can't get more complex than this population. And I love puzzles. I love riddles and problem solving, and kind of quickly realized that I could do both. I could help people and use the problem solving skills, and haven't really looked back since.
I'm sure they had to twist your arm to go to Hawaii for that job.
I clearly miss it. If you can see the picture in the back, I miss the ocean quite a bit.
All right. Well, it's a great spot. Very beautiful place. So how did your earlier experience in the payer and health plan space shape your view of our healthcare system?
I think it gave me a front row seat to how incentives drive behavior. It also helps you get a solid understanding of how payers work, how they think internally, as well as the state and federal regs that are really shaping the incentives and decisions that everyone in healthcare is making. So very solid foundation. It's helped in my current role with just how to be a better partner with payers, whether I'm a provider or a vendor, what have you, to just kind of align those goals.
And Christina, how did your experience as a doctor shape your view of the healthcare system on the provider side before you moved on to the vendor side?
Yeah. Well, I'm still a provider with Override, so I kind of have my foot in wearing both hats, right?
Good.
But I guess I'm not unlike many other doctors when I say, the system that we work in is incredibly siloed. Patients have to bounce between specialists, different proceduralists, another doctor who's going to do medications for you. Everybody's all over the place and it's just not coordinated. And so I saw that firsthand, how my patients were just struggling to manage all of this themselves. And that can be really frustrating and really delay care. And so, what I was really excited about was doing something that's going to be antithesis to that, right? How do we actually build toward collaborative care where everybody's going to work together and in our sort of broken system?
Excellent. Kili, what are some common misconceptions about health plans and payers that stand out to you?
So now that I'm on the other side of the fence, on the provider side, I feel like I've kind of seen it all because I've sat in the payer seat, the provider seat, and the vendor seat, so to speak. I think the biggest misconception, I'll caveat my husband's in the payer space, so I'm trying not to be biased, but I do think the biggest misconception is that payers don't care about their patients. And in reality, there are a lot of people inside these plans that are deeply committed to patient health, but they're often constrained by just old legacy systems, processes. And so, from my perspective, having sat in all the seats, I'm optimistic about the payers and partnering with the payers. I think the real opportunity for us is how do we innovate in ways that can help align our goals to really improve patient outcomes and lower cost of care?
And Christina,
So
what are some, oh, my mistake.
I was going to say they're just not the evil people that everybody thinks they are. I think they have their own challenges.
Hey, we need a little bit of hope in this
Yeah,
world, so I like it. Always great to give others benefit of the doubt and really align. And we're all on the same team. We're all going to be patients at some point. So,
that's right.
I think that's something that a lot of people miss at times. Christina, what are some common misconceptions about physicians?
Oh, so I think one is definitely that any doctor has all the answers and knows everything about your medical care, right? I think the misunderstanding is that it really does take a subspecialist to understand a specific disease process. Like if you have diabetes, you need an endocrinologist. If you have, complex diabetes, and for pain, a pain specialist. Not every doctor knows everything about every disease process. I
I
think
think
that's
we learned that through the opioid crisis
yeah,
was,
exactly.
doctors
Yep.
were not all that
Yeah.
knowledgeable about how to manage pain.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And then, if I can add, I think another one is that doctors are kind of stuck in their ways, resistant to change. They tend to be old school. And I think the truth is, doctors want to see change, positive change, but it's the systems that we're stuck in that don't always allow us to work outside of what we're doing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Keely, walk us through your experience as Chief Growth Officer of I2I Population Health and how that, helped you, since in your current role.
Sure. It was a really formative 4-year period. I think of it as another degree. It was the first time I was running a full sales team. So there was a really steep learning curve. I'd kind of done business development, but hadn't really done, leading a full sales team. So I learned a lot about the rigor of pipeline management and really what it takes to build a repeatable growth engine. At the time when I joined, we were just working with FQHCs in the population health space. So while we were there, we then expanded to working with Medicaid MCOs, mainly in like a quality improvement type of realm. And then we also expanded to health systems.
Hmm.
And then during that time, we also raised Series A and Series B. So it was a great opportunity for me to learn about working with private equity investors, venture capital investors. It was a crash course in growth, leadership, I mean, all of it. So extraordinarily helpful. And much of what I've learned there has really built a strong foundation for what we're doing at Override. So super grateful for that opportunity.
Fantastic. And what would you say your greatest accomplishments were in those 4 years?
Ooh, I'd say it's probably the same for everywhere that I've gone, in that it really comes down to building strong teams. So at I2I, I built and led a sales team that really helped us expand from FQHCs to payers to health systems, which are all very different entities.
Yeah.
And then ultimately that fueled our growth that led to our funding round. So, the same at Override. I'm really proud of the team we're building here. They're mission driven, they're startup minded. And so the goal is, we want people that can really empathize with our patients and listen to them and hear them, but also be able to move fast and get things done. So I'd say it was the same at I2I.
Yep. And Christina, tell us a bit about your career experience as a physician. You've been chief resident at University of Miami. You were the fellowship program director of the Department of Pain Medicine, done a lot of other, amazing things. What would you say your greatest accomplishments are as a provider?
I think prior to working for Override, I think the greatest accomplishment would have been the training and education that I developed, and just leaving that legacy of the future of pain physicians, right? The education and training and the innovation to the program, and that was, I still feel very grateful that I had that opportunity. And now I think the most exciting thing I've done is develop the pain curriculum here at Override and help to scale this interdisciplinary team from we had 0 patients when I started to over 1,000, almost 2,000 lives touched now, I believe.
I think we're actually almost at 3,000 now.
Almost
Yeah.
3, yeah. So it's just, taking off, and that's been really the really greatest success because this new legacy is going to touch even more people, I think. So that's what I'm very, very proud of.
From the time you were a medical student to now, what were your greatest learnings and insights on like how to manage pain properly?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing I've learned over the years is that, well, one, medication can't fix everything. It's for especially chronic illness. You really need team-based care, multidisciplinary care that's going to treat a whole person. So
And
in every Exactly, that's exactly right. In every complex disease process, you need whole person care. So, I mean, that's been the biggest learning and what I've taken to Override and what we're trying to do is develop that whole person, patient-centered care.
I like it. That's great. Keely, as an advisor of Valtris, tell us about how being exposed to the venture side of healthcare helps you today as CEO of Override.
So when I was working with Valtris, we launched Tuesday Health. So it was a ground up startup, and I had never dipped my toe into a true startup. Most of the projects I'd been involved in the last 10, 12 years were all private equity back growth stage. So the company had been around 15, 20 years, was starting to grow. So the startup piece, which seems obvious, but you've got to take it something from concept and then figure out how to execute. And you've got to get really creative with limited resources. And there's a lot of unknowns, and you can never really paint the future, right? You just never know where you're going to be in a week, a month, a year. The thing that Vouchers helped me learn that's really been helpful here is, dollars are limited in a startup.
Yep.
And creativity is key. So the biggest lesson was how do we do more with less? And in some ways, I think it's actually made us better. We get better ideas and solutions when you have to get really creative. So that's helped a lot with the transition to Override, because this is the most kind of startup thing I've ever done in my career. So I'm fortunate for the experience at Valtris that I think it was like the final piece of the puzzle I needed to also build the confidence that like, I can go do this. Like you just got to be creative and you got to lean on your peers and your team.
I'll have Christina go first on this next one, and then we'll go back. But I want to ask you about the same question. Inspired you to join Override?
Yeah, so my patients, I mentioned earlier how I noticed patients were really frustrated with their care and, the siloed type of care where they're having to bounce back and forth to different offices all the time and be their own care managers. The patients are often, over medicated and over proceduralized, and yet they're still not improving. And the missing piece was this, again, whole person, interdisciplinary type of care and
Yep.
really, what's going to bring them value to their lives moving forward. So that's why I saw that Override was building this and, they were going to prove that this was doable and scalable. And I was, right on board.
That's great. What about you, Keely?
I'd say there's probably a three-part answer to that. So one is just the opportunity in the market. You've got 25% of our population experiences chronic or persistent pain. It's a massive issue. So I think that was one. There was a gap in the market to solve. The second was I've got some personal stories, folks in my life that have been experiencing persistent pain for years, a close friend that lost their life to the opioid addiction. So there was, kind of the mission driven aspect. We also, for me, growth and continuing to learn and evolve and be curious is really critical for me in my career. I just want to continuously be improving. We've got an amazing group of investors and board members, and I knew I was going to be able to learn a lot from them. So I think it was a combination of that. And to tag on to what Christina was saying, the opportunity to build something that's unique and different and provides whole person care. I wanted to be part of the team that built that. So it was a multitude of factors, but
Yeah, and I would say, again, A1 investors or 1A investors, 7Wire being the ones I'm most familiar with, but they have some other great ones. And, it's been one of the biggest issues this country has gone through in the last century, being the opioid crisis and our inability to manage pain, as a country. So it's pretty cool to be able to work on something that's like one of the biggest challenges this country's faced in a very, very long time.
Yeah, 100%. And I think coming from the value-based care world, I ultimately want to figure out how we move upstream. So how do we identify and catch people before they become chronic pain patients, right? Like let's take the label off. You think
Yeah.
about everyone has their own pain journey, but if you think about how people enter into our, definition of chronic pain, it's all different ways. So it could be just wear and tear in your 40s, but it could also be you had some sort of traumatic incident like a car accident.
Yeah.
And so imagine when someone's getting discharged and they're kind of going through all their rehab, at some point they are going to need help with the biopsychosocial approach. And so if we can start embedding that earlier in the process, can we prevent opioid dependency, Can we start, kind of sharing learned behaviors and lifestyle changes that will like mitigate or prevent people from doing all these surgeries that may not be necessary?
I'm going to ask both of you the same question. One of you can chime in first. What are three crucial traits you look for when hiring on your teams?
Okay. So I'm actually going to ask Christina to answer this because I feel like everybody in my team knows. I have three, and they're almost in order of importance. So I'm curious. I'm going to put you on the spot, Christina, and see if
Yeah.
you got this.
Yes, we've talked about this before in hiring in all different types of roles. But one, they have to be a good fit, a cultural fit for our company and our team. And so they have to get along with everybody and be the right type of personality fit. Two, they need to be very curious and open to learning, just like Kili, wanting to learn all the time and wanting to improve and grow together. And then, of course, they have to have the relevant experience for the
Hmm.
role. And I think that's, I mean, arguably most important. Did I get it
Yes,
right, Kili?
you did. I'm so excited. I've been like, just kind of drilling this into folks. I think if we get all those three right, the rest can be developed. And the cultural fit piece isn't, are they life of the party and do they have the same personality as everyone else? As much as feedback. Can they give feedback? Can they receive feedback? Can they do that in a way with tact? Like that's a big one. The curiosity piece, like we're all trying to figure this out in the startup world. And so the Googling, the chat GPTing, like we got to get creative. And so I think it's just, we have to be able to learn
I think
consistently.
curiosity and creativity go hand in hand.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm very fortunate. We've brought in some new leadership team members in the last 6 months that embody all three traits. So I'm really excited about the team that we've built.
Like it. Christina, what did you see firsthand, in the medical system and how we currently address chronic pain that made you realize there is a better way?
Yeah, so I think I kind of alluded to it earlier. There are so many patients that are just given one shot sort of solution for everything, right? It's going to be opioids, it's going to be an injection, they'll likely have an MRI, and then the road leads to surgery, right? But there are other evidence-based therapies like let's do some physical therapy first and behavioral health therapy first. And those are all really underutilized. And what's going on in our system is we're pushing towards these more invasive, higher cost, higher risk procedures when there's a lot of basic things that we can do to, like Keely mentioned, prevent this downstream high cost and high risk patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does override address chronic pain in a way, completely different than the traditional healthcare system?
Yeah, so in a traditional healthcare system, you're going to probably go to your pain doctor and get an injection here. Go to your PCP, maybe, who's writing medications for you. Go to another office for physical therapy. You might have a psychologist somewhere else across town. So what we're doing is centralizing all of that, building interdisciplinary teams that have physicians, physical therapists, behavioral health specialists, and pain coaches, which is a unique aspect of our team here. And all of that care is continuous under one roof. It's virtual, so you can access it from your own home. We have an app where patients can get lessons on pain and how to manage their pain. And so we're really reaching patients from that whole health perspective from all angles in order to get full control over the pain.
And if I can add to that, like we're realistic that we're not going to completely rip and replace everything that a patient's going through. A lot of the folks that come to us have been experiencing pain for decades, right? So we actually get a lot of referrals to us by brick and mortar pain clinics.
Oh,
So
that's
we'll
good.
partner with them and say, okay, like clearly, you've got a great relationship, but let us wrap around all the other services. And so we do a lot of coordination with health systems, with providers, whether it's rheumatology, osteopaths, health systems. So I think it's flexible enough to meet the needs of the patient so that we can really kind of make sure we're addressing their needs, not just trying to put our model on them and force it on them, if that makes sense.
I like it. Yeah, you guys are flexible. You meet them where they are. You don't like force your solution like down their
Yeah,
throat necessarily. So Keely, can you please share some stories of patients experiencing chronic pain and how Override
sure.
was able to help them?
So I'll say that every patient's journey is unique, but we do hear a lot of things consistently. And there's a story of a patient that stuck with me because of the simplicity of the success in her program. So she came to us after years of debilitating pain, opioid utilization, a lot of surgeries, and she still had debilitating pain. And after being in our program for a couple months, she let us know that she was able to start gardening again. And that seems like a simple thing, but a lot of what we do is we set these functional goals of like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, how do you get back to living your life? And so she was really excited at the fact that she could start gardening because she thought she had lost that forever. Those are the types of success stories where it's not trying to go conquer Mount Everest. People want to walk down the block with their grandkid or be able to stand long enough in the kitchen to cook a meal for their family. And they feel like they've lost that. And they've lost the hope of being able to do the like simple things in life.
I love it. I'm obsessed with Living to 100 on Netflix. Dan Butner, the
Yeah.
Blue Zones like
Yeah.
influencer, says gardening is like one of the best activities a human can have for longevity because it helps with range of motion. It helps with strength in certain like core areas, that really help people age gracefully. So, it's interesting. Like, I think America has it a little bit backwards in that it's either sit in your chair and grind at work or go to some workout class where you're like sweating balls to the wall for like 45
Yeah.
minutes, an hour. And there's
Totally.
no just like moderate exercise or like moderate range of motion and mobility and strength and all that type of thing. Wherein, Europe and Asia and South America, like people have their own gardens. They
Mm-hmm.
walk places 90% of the time they leave their house and only get in a car for long trips. Like there's just almost things kind of baked into their lifestyle that
Yeah.
make it, much more realistic to be able to get, good physical activity and, make sure you're moving your body enough. So that's great to hear. And, shameless plug. We'd love to have Dan on the podcast one of these days.
That would be
So all things
great.
longevity, that's incredible that you're able to, give people their life back, their range of motion back, just, feeling comfortable in your body. If you're not, you can be
Mm-hmm.
really distracted and it can be very hard to like just get anything done, in your life.
Yeah. Well, and there was a study that came out, I want to say this week or last week, and this seems obvious, but there's studies and everything that said just like doing casual leisurely walks can significantly reduce your risk for lower back pain.
Oh, for sure.
So you don't even have to do crazy exercise, just get out and walk around your neighborhood.
Yep. That's so true. So true. Tell us a bit about the patient experience at Override. 85% of patients report meaningful pain reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why does this work so much better?
I'll take a stab, Christina, unless you want to jump in. So when patients come to us, they're frustrated. They're very frustrated. They feel lonely. That's a lot. Like probably the number one thing we hear is, I don't feel heard. Whether it's from their family members, their treating clinicians, a lot of times they feel like people don't believe them that they have chronic pain, or those around them are like just tired of hearing about it. And so there's a lot of that angst. So when they come to us, I think part of it is they feel heard. The second is that they have a team. So we've got this collaborative team, and the team gets together, discusses the case for a given patient, comes up with a personalized plan, but we focus around the goals of that patient. Is it gardening? Is it getting back to walking, right? Like, what are the things that are important to the patient? So those are probably the two biggest things. I'd say the third thing that I'm really proud of is a lot of our, if not most of our employees have some sort of pain experience personally or with a family member. So a
Hmm.
lot of the folks that are interacting with our patients on a day-to-day basis were either former patients of ours that have gotten back to living their life, or patients that had been experiencing pain for years, got a pain coach, loved the pain coaching, that they became a coach themselves. So I think that resonates with our patients, that this isn't just somebody we've hired off the street. These are individuals that have gone through the program and have found success, and they can kind of relate to them. So it's like embedding peer support into our entire patient experience model.
Really cool. Christina, any insights on your end?
I was going to say very similarly, Keely, that's exactly right. Patients, they feel believed. A lot of the times patients will come here and say, this is the first time that, I feel heard, I feel believed and supported. Because a lot of patients will go to pain providers who tell them, oh, it's just all in your head, or You just need this injection and it'll be fixed. And we understand pain on another level. As Kili mentioned, most of us have some sort of story ourselves. And then, so the patients are amongst their peers and they're fully supported from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
If I can just add, Norm, the thing that's really interesting about pain is, so I don't know if you've heard about the concept of pain neuroscience, but when you're a kid and you're like learning to ride a bike, and so usually there's someone there holding the seat and helping you, but you also have to use your brain and your body to steer and to balance and to pedal and to, look ahead of you for obstacles. So it's really kind of the first time that you're using your brain and your body. So pain is actually very similar. You can actually learn pain. So it's not that it's all in their head, but if you've experiencing chronic pain for 20 years, the thing that caused it in the first place, the tissue, the bones probably healed, but your neural pathways have been rewritten. And so that's kind of why you can't just address the physical aspects. You have to talk about lifestyle changes, nutrition, the physical movement aspect, and the behavioral health component of kind of addressing all of that together. And that's why I think it's also unique for patients that come to us, is it can kind of get it all in one place.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest issues in healthcare is people just don't know who to trust and when to trust them. So the way I'm looking at it, patients can be misled because they have full trust in their doctor. Their doctor thinks the right thing is just to write an opioid script because that's what they were told by someone else because they aren't like a specialist in pain management. So it makes sense like why people say, well, my doctor told me to just take this and they didn't give me any other instructions. So I should finish the script and it should go away, like naturally. Like they didn't mention anything. So just kind of walk me through about like what some of these non-opioid approaches are and why they truly are better for the patient than just, the script and hoping to put a band-aid on it.
Yeah, so I can take that one. It's about really finding the things that work for an individual patient. So you do have to go case by case a little bit. One thing that works for a patient, for instance, pacing or deep breathing might not work for another patient who prefers meditation or some other, gratitude practices. And so the reason why we can get patients to control their pain without using opioids is by replacing the opioids with these new skills. So a new skill that's going to help reduce pain in the moment. And then practicing the skill over and over again solidifies, as Keely had mentioned, the pain pathway healing. So it's going to help heal that pain pathway to better control the pain in the long run. And so all it is this repetition of things that are going to work for the patient. And so the hardest thing is the practicing of the skill, right? And so that's why we have what we call pain coaches here to help. And so this is the way I kind of describe it, because pain coaching is unique, and I don't think it's something that most practices are going to have. This is how I describe it to folks. So imagine you wanted to learn a new skill like how to play the piano or play tennis or something. You could do it on your own. You could watch some YouTube videos and read a book and then go practice. But if you hired a coach, you're going to be more likely to be successful, right, at that skill. And the skill we're trying to teach patients here is how to manage your pain, how to not let it manage you.
Yeah, and the pain neuroscience that our curriculum is based, it's all evidence-based, has been around for over 30 years, and it felt really gratifying. I think it was last week that Dr. Sanjay Gupta, he's on a big press tour right now, but he just released his book, It Doesn't Have to Hurt, completely underscores everything that we've built our model around. So it feels like we're getting a lot of free press for what we're doing, and so I kind of love it.
Well, it's deserved, right? If you're doing the right things, the spotlight should find you at some point. So Keely, how does Override partner with payers to reduce cost? Because when push comes to shove, outcomes are great, but payers, they're looking at dollars and cents. Most of them are
100%.
bigger companies. So walk us through how not only is this better for the patient, but it's also better for the payers from just like an economic standpoint as well.
Yeah. So if you look at the stats, I think the impact to chronic and persistent pain on our industry is over 600 billion. I think the last count was 635 billion. So that's, direct and indirect expense. Indirect could be lost days at work and productivity to direct as medical expense. But a lot of that's related to avoidable procedures, whether they're elective or interventional procedures, recurring surgeries, ED visits is a big one. And so we're partnering with payers to offer this comprehensive program knowing that there are going to be times where patients still are going to need a procedure. They're still potentially going to need an opioid, right? There's a time and a place, but not at the rates that we're seeing. And so we're helping the payers with lowering the total cost of care associated with this population, also lowering opioid dependency. We've had a lot of success there for, we don't prescribe controlled substances, but we have a lot of patients that come to us on a controlled substance. And then the patient satisfaction is extraordinarily high with our program. And so that correlates to CAP scores and member satisfaction. So there's some wins across the board, but that's a lot of the ways that we're working with the payers.
Okay. And I'll ask this question because, again, a lot of people just aren't knowledgeable about it. The challenge with medication is sure you get certain advantages, but also you get side effects, you get symptoms. And a lot of times the symptoms can be hard to see like the first handful of times you take it. And then, like, as it gets in your system, it only gets worse. So, can you walk us through, like, what are some of the very negative side effects other than addiction of opioids? That if you can manage your pain without it, it just makes for a much happier, healthier person.
Yeah, I think that's for me. So for
I
sure.
guess you would answer.
Yeah. So the negative sides of opioids. So obviously the addiction side, you mentioned Norm. And that's because opioids affect the brain. A lot of other medications affect the peripheral body, so outside of the brain, the spinal cord, your Tylenols, your ibuprofens are going to affect spinal cord and peripheral body. But because the opioids affect the brain, that's why you can get this addiction. So aside from that, it causes negative effects to your GI tract. So I'm sure you may have heard constipation comes hand in hand. That unfortunately doesn't never goes away. Anytime you're on an opioid, you'll get constipated. That can lead to things like obstruction. And I've seen patients develop perforations or holes in their bowel because of severe constipation. And that's very uncomfortable and leads to abdominal pain and emergency surgery and things. Aside from that, opioids can also have a negative impact on your hormones, and that's probably more lesser known. So your sex hormones in particular. And so a man who's been on opioids for a very long time can have lower testosterone and higher estrogen and may develop breast tissue, for instance, or have sexual dysfunction. And then, say, women can have issues with like hair growth and etc., lower libido.
Drowsiness as well. So, like, if you're taking something that makes you drowsy, makes you loopy, like,
Yes, the fatigue.
you're not
That's
going
what
to
I
get
was
off
saying.
the couch and go exercise,
Absolutely.
move your
Exactly.
body, and
Yes.
then it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you take it, it doesn't hurt for the moment, but then you're just kind of sitting around being a couch potato, and then that happens weeks and weeks, months and months,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, like, your body, your range of motion, your strength has deteriorated to a point where it's hard to dig out of that hole.
Exactly.
And we're also realistic. It's not just opioids that we're trying to help people move away from. Again, there's a time and a place for everything, but we don't know a lot of the long-term impact of many of these drugs. And studies are starting to come out. Like there was a study this week that gabapentin, which is a non-controlled substance that we do prescribe, is now tied to potential higher risks of dementia later in life, right? So these are the types of things that we're not only trying to educate ourselves about, and our clinicians, but educate our patients. And so, in addition to the use of the medications and those outcomes, just educate them in general around pain has also shown that they have a higher likelihood of better managing their pain and just reducing medication dependency across the board.
Fantastic. Kili, what do you look forward to over the next 5 years at Override? What do we have to be excited about?
Growth is number one. We're expanding with our payers, our provider partnerships. I'm really excited about that. We're also expanding our multidisciplinary model. So there's a lot of work being done about how we scale our clinicians. The thing I'm probably maybe the most excited about is bringing technology like AI-driven evidence-based decision support, risk stratification with the goal of just better improving how we personalize the care that we offer. So those are some of the big ones that I'm really excited about over the next 5 years. Yeah.
I don't want you to bring out the gloves because I'm gonna ask something that might, be, a
Oh
point of
God.
contention with most like clinical leaders and their CEOs. When it comes to AI, Usually the founder, CEO, and the investors are like, yeah, let's leverage it. It makes our unit economics. It increases the margin. Like, let's go gung ho. And then the clinicians are usually like, nah, there's certain things a human needs to do. And, we got to be a little bit careful without watering this down too much. So I guess I'll ask both of you, how do you see AI impacting your business? And Christina, where do you see AI allowing clinicians to become more efficient and work top of license while still getting the advantages of that like person to person interaction and making sure we don't water down the clinical service too much by, adding technology without the human touch?
Absolutely. I think that's kind of an age-old question with how are we going to scale AI in healthcare overall? But I mean, the first and foremost documentation, right? I think AI is already being used everywhere in scribe technology. And so that's like a bane of a lot of clinicians' existence, right? The documentation that has to be done, the writing of notes that's done nights and weekends. And so AI is already allowing clinicians to have their time back by doing ambient scribing. And we are using that, and we are using that for our providers, and that has been really time saving. In addition to that, it's all about the in between visits and what happens in between visits. And so, when we think about what's really going to help a patient stay on course and practice their skills that are helping them control their pain, we're going to need for them to be adherent to whatever plan it is in between their visits with their physician, with their care team. And so, automated reminders and nudges can be really important. Automated check-ins that will then trigger these downstream escalations if they need to be. We don't need to have a human calling every week to check in on the patient if it's some sort of AI is able to do that, but then flag to a human if the next step needs to be taken. This patient's saying, this medication I'm taking makes me feel a little dizzy. All right, now a human needs to come and get involved, right?
Yep. I like it. Well, Christina, I'll use a little example and I'll give Keely a little extra time to answer hers. But don't worry. I know over the last couple of years, clinicians are trying to be replaced by AI, like at least, some groups are. There's been decades of people trying to replace recruiters. That's my first career. I've become a venture capitalist since, so now I have a couple businesses. But, when Monster started, Monster.com, people are like, oh yeah, no need for recruiters. That wasn't the case. Then LinkedIn came. No, that's not the case. Now there's these AI tools. Still not the case. Our clients still need us. But what it's allowed the top echelon recruiters to be is a hell of a lot more efficient. Because what do my clients want? They want our skills in extracting information and building strong networks and getting great candidates through referral and getting, a lot of strong sound information, from the people that would know. They don't really care if I'm the one who wrote an email about like, hey, we're presenting this candidate, or if AI did that for me, and it saved me 30 minutes, or building the list of people to call where it's like, hey, let's have AI do it and then have a human look it over and be like, they missed here, they missed there, but it saved me, 2 hours. It's like, how can we make these people more efficient so they can spend their days focusing on top of license? Because they're, again, in my opinion, in the recruitment field, you never want AI asking, hey, what's your compensation? Why are you open to making a move? What are you looking for, in your next career? Because there's always those clarifying questions an expert needs to be able to ask to dig in further, where AI, you're just not going to have that personal relationship, and they're not going to have that learned experience. So it's almost like, hey, how do we learn from other industries of how other industries have like made certain skills the priority and outsource the rest? Like it will be the same with everything in medicine. The great ones will continue to like get the most volume of patients, and it's really just going to allow them to be a hell of a lot more efficient. So Keely, I will let you answer now.
Well, I'll start with the shameless plug for you guys in the recruiter space. We did try to do it on our own using AI, and ended up going with DRI, and you found us a rock star. So really appreciate that. I'd say just to
We
add to
want to support our
Christina's,
placements. So when we placed you,
yeah,
like, hey, we're not ditching you. Whatever you need from us to make you successful, we're here for it.
no, you guys have been great. I really appreciate it. I
Thank
was
you.
just going to add to what Christina said. nobody really knows what the future holds with AI, right? It's changing so fast. I'd say in the pain space, the here and now is the fact that for every 27,000 patients that are experiencing pain, there's one board certified pain doc. There's one Christina. So we have to use AI to scale and to extend what our providers can do. So that's how we're thinking about it is, it's not necessarily that they're going to be getting visits from an AI bot, right? That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to extend our clinicians because access to care is a real problem in pain. That's one of the ways we're helping the payers is like, we've got to get this out there. We've got to get better access. Maybe a year ago, I would have said, like, AI is never going to replace a clinician. It could in the future. We don't know. We just don't know what AI holds.
Which level? Is it a
Correct.
physician's assistant? Is it a nurse practitioner? Like, there's
Yeah.
certain things that are going to become more crucial. There's certain things that are going to be less crucial, and we'll see, what that becomes. But it's funny. I recruit for companies. Now I invest in companies. I would say this as an investor, when we're talking about AI, I'm more interested in how they're applying it to their internal operations than external. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's very funny when there's a company that's like, oh yeah, we're leveraging AI in our product and all these things. And then it's like, but you're sending me your availability in an email you obviously wrote, like you should have something or someone doing that for you as like the CEO of a company. It's like, how do we make ourselves more efficient internally within our businesses? I think that's more important at this stage than how can we
100%.
apply AI to our actual customer experience or patient
100%. And we encourage all of our employees to use AI, whether it's embedded in, we're a Google shop, so we have Gemini or, using ChatGPT. It's something that we actively promote. I think what we're trying to figure out is, probably benefit if we had one consolidated, which is why we embedded it into our G Suite with Gemini.
Yeah.
It makes people more efficient, but it also helps with like having somebody to bounce ideas against. So if we're not using it, we're behind the curve. And, I've got 2 teenagers. They're using it, right? If you don't figure out how to use it, you're going to be obsolete as well.
I'm a late adopter as well. I'm going to France on Sunday for a friend's wedding, and I'm like freaking out because I have to have all my meals planned in advance for 2 reasons. Number one, I like to eat well. Number two, I have a restricted diet. So like when you go somewhere, it's not always like, oh, just go ask where the best restaurant around the corner is. It's got to be like something I can eat, my wife can eat. So anyways, someone's like, why don't you just like ask AI like to go through these articles and recommend based on what museums and what attractions, like what's close. I'm like, oh man, that's a good idea. So anyways, I'm even personally a late adopter, and I just want to tell our fans of the podcast, we will not be outsourcing me to AI anytime soon. I will still, film these.
Who's going to wear the gloves?
Yeah, no one. That's the biggest challenge.
We're
leveraging
did you see
AI, but not in our key, areas.
Did you see the Apple announcement on the new AirPods that came out?
No,
So,
but I'm interested.
the AirPod version 3, just bear with me on this. It does relate to healthcare, but they will now translate in real time. So when you go to France, it'll actually start translating.
Can I buy it? Like
they get out in September at some point.
Wow.
So it kind of depends, but they'll translate in real time. And then as you're speaking back, it'll actually translate what you're seeing back into the language on your phone. I just started thinking about the healthcare applicability. Think about all the translation vendors out there because we're trying to figure this out right now. We have a very large Spanish-speaking population
Texas,
in our patient group.
California, Arizona, like huge percentages of the population. And we're not just talking about Spanish speakers. We're talking about
everything.
Like people from China and India and like all over, the world, not just like our neighbors.
And imagine if you have also, a language, to your point, that isn't as common as Spanish, and you could just pop in your earbuds, whether you're on a telehealth visit, an in-person visit, like it's a game changer.
Yeah, well, I missed it by a month, but my next international trip, it's going to come in very, very in handy. So thank you for that. What have been the major accomplishments both of you have had at Override that just keep you, motivated day in and day out?
Do you want to start with that one, Christina?
Yeah, sure. So really the greatest success is how fast we've scaled. We've been seeing patients for only really like 2 years and now over almost 3,000 patients. And All the while, though, our outcomes have been really strong and patient satisfaction has been, 96% or higher. And so we haven't lost any quality. And I think
Mhm.
that has really been the greatest success. And we're doing it without opioids, without injections, saving people from emergency room visits. And so it's doable. That's been really the greatest success.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think the impact on the patients that we're seeing, the stories that they're sharing with us about returning to work, spending time with their kids, that's been a big one. From a business standpoint, the way that we're expanding partnerships with payers and validating the model has been really rewarding. So it just kind of validates that the market's recognizing now the need for change.
That's fantastic. Any predictions outside of AI about the digital health space over the next decade?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me this question.
We can
And
skip it, no worries.
well, here's why. I thought about this for a while and I was like, I wonder if this is the right question anymore. And maybe it's, so don't get the gloves on, but maybe the
Please.
question is more around whether our healthcare system, which is historically sluggish, slow to adopt, can keep up with the pace of AI and digital technologies and how fast they're evolving, right? So we know that all of our system is governed by state and federal regulation. And so in this new digital age, if the regs can't keep up, how fast can healthcare keep up? So I think that's the question I keep asking ourselves. Like we're in a telehealth forward space, we're a virtual provider, we're embedding AI. And so I think for us, the real test is if the policy and the practice can move at the same speed.
Christina, any predictions?
Completely agree. I think digital health, telehealth is going to be mainstream, right? It kind of already is, but even more so. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think the people have spoken, right? People love being able to access care from their own homes and care from like specialists who they might not be able to find. And so I do think that yeah, we're not going to be fighting, like, hopefully not going to be fighting with insurance companies and getting the telehealth model paid for. It'll be much more streamlined in the future.
Yeah, I personally think nothing can change unless two things happen. First, we have to be better about aligning incentives. Like the incentives are just completely misaligned. Payers, health systems, pharma making money hand over fist. The employers getting absolutely raked over the coals. So, I think that's a piece of it. And the second piece is behavior change. Like you can change companies, you can change the health plans, you can change everything. But if the people in industry think the same way they've been thinking for the last 2 decades, 3 decades, we're screwed. So a little bit of it is like, all right, how can these companies change? But how can the people change? How can they change how they think? And how can the structure of healthcare change? If we can't work on those two other things and we're only working on the tech, we're going to be looking back with a lot of disappointment.
I agree. I'm also optimistic. That's my style. That what's different now, right now, is that everybody has AI in their hands. Versus, it used to be you'd have your product development process at any company, whether it was a payer system, and they gather all these requirements from the subject matter expert or the client within the org, and they spend months building something out, and then they'd go in QA and test it. Now you can do it in days, right? And then the end users would see something a year later that had been built and mandated by somebody in an office. Now everybody has AI in their hands. Like I think everyone's starting to think about like how can I use the AI and the technology? So it's a really interesting time where it does feel like we're actually moving well past where the system has the capability to keep up. And so I'm optimistic that we're going to figure this out and behaviors are going to change, but be really curious to see how the regulatory side keeps up.
If we as people in industry don't change, nothing can change. So hopefully we all ourselves hold ourselves accountable and kind of encourage others to think long term about what's best for the industry as a whole, the country, as opposed to hey, what's going to give you personally the most job security over the next
Mhm.
5 to 10 years. It's really got to be a revolution in like how we think about these things. So I think a huge piece of healthcare, and we discussed it, is what are you doing every day? Like, are you on the couch? Are you just eating a bag of chips and eating ice cream and watching Netflix? Or are you out and about and getting some activity? And even if it's not vigorous exercise, like, are you moving your body? Are you, spending time with people you love? All those types of things. So I asked everyone on this podcast, how do you practice what you preach? Like, how do you become a great patient for your care team? And ideally, you don't have one because you don't need one. But Keely, I know you're an avid sailor. Tell us about what you do to reduce stress and, keep healthy in a very high pressure role, which is CEO
Yeah,
of a VC-backed company that has the opportunity, to change the industry and change the world.
yeah. I wish I was still an avid sailor. I live in Dayton, Ohio now, so not a lot of large bodies of water. So I
Never go
do
on the
miss it.
Ohio, sail down the river.
People go either north or they go to like Tennessee.
Oh,
So
okay.
I have to find alternatives. I definitely do a lot of walks in the neighborhood. I've actually found a great group of people that are either entrepreneurs, startup CEOs, people in the healthcare industry that I can do walks with. So it's kind of a
Great.
twofer, or I can bounce ideas. I'm trying to get into golf and pickleball, so that's another thing over the last couple of weekends and months I've been working on.
Oh, you got to
Um,
talk to Trevor on my team. He's a good golfer. He's a good pickleball
oh, I'm
player.
not good. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
well,
get
I'm
out
saying
and
you could get some tips. Go on the
yeah.
digital health pulse with Trevor. He might give you a couple tips on each. I ask him for tips. He's like he's my guru on those two
Well, I
sports.
definitely know my husband knows not to give me tips. I think that's like the pathway to a happy marriage is don't give your wife tips on the golf course. But, there's a lot of things in our company that we focus on, like sleep is a big one. So really focused on getting a good night's sleep. So there's a lot of things and we're always trading ideas within the team of like, how'd you sleep? What are you working on? What's your latest? Christina, I know you have a
It's great
couple
to have a
healthy
peer
habits.
group, and I
Yeah,
love that you found one.
we have fun too, which is important.
Good.
For sure. So for me, how I reduce stress and keep healthy is really movement is number one. So I make sure that I move my body every day. I'm an avid tennis player, and so I play tennis several times a week.
Have you
Um,
caught the pickleball bug, or is that like a
no,
dirty word in your household?
yeah, no, there's, we butt heads,
She
the tennis players
she's
and
a
the
purist.
pickleballers.
Oh, oh, the tennis pro at my club hates pickleball. He can't come out and say it, but every pickleball player that plays like at the club definitely gets the vibe that he just looks down on us.
Yeah, I can say I have tried pickleball. It's not for me, but good for pickleballers, good for you. Um, Aside from that, I'm also a yoga teacher by training, and so I make
My wife
sure.
is too.
Oh yeah, awesome. I make sure that I incorporate some sort of yoga throughout the week, and that's mind and body, right? There's a meditative component to it. And then additionally, I make sure I have my boundaries for downtime, family and downtime. I have a 4-year-old, and so gotta make sure I get my family time in the evening. I don't watch TV, until I go to bed. I read a book instead. So things like that.
I love it. And I think what we're putting in our bodies is a huge determining factor. I think even with pain, like if you can reduce inflammation, like that's going to be better for your pain outcomes. So I'm sure an overrides care plan, like nutrition is a piece of it. But how do both of you stay healthy, stay nourished, all week long, probably running from meeting to meeting? Like, what are some really easy, healthy recipes you make at home that by you mentioning it might inspire someone who watches and listens to this to try something new, and we might even cook it on the Healthy Headhunters segment that we have that my team enjoys eating.
Well, I'll just say like I'm not really a meal prepper, but I do this the beginning of each week. It's kind of like this big hearty Mediterranean salad. So it's like chickpeas and peppers and feta cheese and red onions and cucumbers and cilantro and parsley. I kind of mix it all together. And
Do
then
you
I can
make a
just like
like
make,
homemade dressing?
yeah, just like olive oil, salt and pepper, and some red wine vinegar. It's super simple, but because it doesn't have like lettuce in it, it kind of keeps all week. And I'm bouncing meeting to meeting to meeting, and half the time I'm like trying to just grab something healthy. So it helps me from not grabbing junk food, and then I can throw in some lettuce or protein. But that's been my go-to for the last couple months.
I love it. Christina, what about you?
Well, so a couple years back, I'll tell a quick story. I was getting a lot of like GI sicknesses, felt like my immune system was just not good. And so I got really into gut health, and I was starting to experiment with prebiotics, probiotics, and then one soup that I found, or they call it Beeler's broth, Bieler. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I'm
It's
not.
essentially, it's a very prebiotic friendly, but very fiber heavy soup. And it's basically, you take celery, you take green beans, and then zucchini, and then you can add whatever spices that you want, some onion if you like, salt and pepper. I put it in the Instapot, cook it all down, get one of these emulsifier things, and turn it into a really like soupy broth. And you have a cup of that once or twice a day. And it's like the most amazing gut healing food. And so anytime I want to detox, like I had a bad weekend, went to the beach and had a bunch of junk food, I want
Yeah.
to come back and reset. I make this, have it for the week, and it's just like sort
Hmm.
of everything's back to normal and feels good. And you just feel
Cool.
clean, right? And you get all your veggies in.
I'll have to try
I
that.
might have to make that this week so that I have it frozen for when I get back from France, and I've had
Yep,
way too
exactly.
many croissants and pastries. Get myself back on track. So thank you for the advice, and we'll definitely make it.
Yeah, that's a really great use case there.
Great. Well, again, both Keely as well as Christina, thank you so much for joining us on the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast. What you and your teams are doing at Override is just tremendous for patients, and keep doing the good work, and we'll be monitoring your progress as time goes on. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Norm. Good to see you.
Norm, this was
Thanks.
great.
Thank you for joining. Please like, comment, and subscribe below if you enjoyed it.